Sometimes destiny surprises us when we least expect it. A simple gesture in a hospital corridor, like a warm smile or a kind word, can alter the course of a life forever. Arturo Montenegro was a man everyone knew, a powerful businessman, owner of a luxury hotel chain and several tech companies. People respected him, feared him even, but nobody really knew him. To the world, he was cold, focused only on profit and expansion. But behind his rigid facade, Arturo carried a pain that never healed. His son, Lucas, just 8 years old, had been in a car accident a year earlier. Arturo had been driving, distracted by a business call. In a single moment of carelessness, a truck crossed their path. Arturo walked away without a scratch, but Lucas was left in a wheelchair. Since that day, Arturo had buried himself in work, not because he didn't love his son, but because every time he saw him, he felt the crushing weight of guilt. He couldn't bear to face him without remembering the accident. Hospital visits became part of his schedule, something to check off a list. He showed up, escorted by bodyguards and his assistant, who handled everything. Arturo stood in the background, glued to his phone, physically present but emotionally distant. Lucas, on the other hand, remained quiet and withdrawn. Though he tried to be strong, his eyes held a deep sadness, the kind only a child who had lost something precious could carry. Then came the day everything began to change. Valentina was a young nurse, around 30, with warm eyes and a smile that felt like sunlight. She didn't believe in cold routines or treating patients like cases. She saw them as people, especially children. When she saw Lucas sitting silently in his wheelchair, something in her heart stirred. She knelt beside him, smiled warmly, and whispered something funny. Lucas laughed, a light, genuine laugh that hadn't been heard in months. Arturo, watching from a distance, frowned. He didn't like strangers getting close to his son. But what he didn't realize was that laugh marked the beginning of something bigger. Valentina treated Lucas like a child, not a patient. She invented playful stories about the paintings in the hospital walls, pretending they hid treasure maps. Lucas smiled, wide-eyed, and asked questions. Arturo was confused. Why was this woman, who barely knew them, investing so much care? During the consultation, Valentina explained every step to Lucas patiently, taking his hand when he got nervous. She even promised to teach him a secret trick to be braver. Arturo found himself paying attention for the first time. He couldn't ignore how calm and happy his son looked. As they walked out, Valentina hummed a soft tune and gently spun Lucas's wheelchair like a dance. "Make way for Prince Lucas," she declared playfully. Lucas raised his arms, laughing freely. For a moment, the hallway came alive with joy. But then Arturo stepped in, voice sharp and cold. "That's enough." The hallway fell silent. Lucas lowered his arms, his smile fading. Valentina stood up and looked Arturo in the eyes. "I'm giving your son something he's been missing. Joy," she said gently. Arturo was speechless. He grabbed the wheelchair and left without another word. That night, he sat in silence at dinner. Lucas poked at his food, quiet again. Then Arturo surprised himself. He asked softly, "Did you like how the nurse treated you today?" Lucas looked up and smiled. "Yes, she's funny." That simple response stirred something inside Arturo. In the following days, he tried convincing himself to forget her, but the memory of his son's laughter haunted him, in the best way. When Lucas's next appointment came, Arturo asked for Valentina. His assistant looked at him surprised. "It's better for the boy," he muttered. Valentina greeted them with her usual smile. She said nothing about what had happened before. She simply greeted Lucas with care and walked beside him. This time there were no games or stories, but something had shifted. Arturo began staying in the room longer. He listened more, scrolled less. Something about Valentina made him want to be present. What Arturo thought would be a one-time request became a routine. He asked for Valentina for every appointment. At first, he told himself it was for Lucas. But slowly, he realized she was helping him too, helping him reconnect with a part of himself he thought was lost forever. Day by day, week by week, that small laugh in the hallway became the seed of something beautiful. Hope. Valentina never challenged Arturo again. She stayed professional, but always warm and kind with Lucas. She treated him like a regular child, not a fragile patient. They played word games and invented stories. Her presence helped Lucas shine a little more each day. One day, while waiting for therapy, Valentina suggested a riddle game. Arturo watched from the corner, arms crossed, silently observing his son's laughter whenever Valentina intentionally gave silly answers. Something stirred in Arturo's chest, though he didn't know what. Then Lucas turned to him and said softly, "Dad, okay?" Arturo froze, tempted to make an excuse, but seeing his son's hopeful face, he sighed and joined them, awkward at first, but willing. Valentina included him in the game without a word. For the first time in years, Arturo forgot about business, time, and responsibility. From that day, Lucas asked his father to stay longer, and slowly Arturo began to enjoy those moments, not out of duty, but because they brought him peace. Valentina noticed the change. Though she was careful, she couldn't help but feel happy for Lucas, whose smile and bond with his father were returning. Neither of them knew a surprise still awaited, a moment that would tie their lives together forever. One afternoon, Lucas nervously asked Valentina, "Do you think my dad will ever dance with me?" She glanced at Arturo, who pretended not to hear. Then she whispered to Lucas, "Why don't we invite him now?" Lucas hesitated, then bravely turned his wheelchair and asked, "Dad, want to dance with us?" Arturo hesitated. Dancing in a hospital? That wasn't him. But his son's hopeful eyes shattered the wall he'd built. Without a word, he stood, walked over, and began moving the wheelchair to Valentina's humming. At first clumsy, he soon found rhythm. Lucas laughed so hard people turned to watch. Even Valentina joined in, and for a few moments the hospital disappeared. Nurses watched from afar, some in tears, some smiling. The coldest man in the hospital was dancing just to make his son happy. That night, Arturo stayed longer, not because he had to, but because he didn't want the day to end. As Lucas slept, Arturo and Valentina sat in the hallway. They spoke of trivial things, but Arturo's smile was different, real. Eventually, Valentina asked, "Were you always this serious?" Arturo sighed and said, "Not always." And then he opened up. He spoke of the guilt he carried, how Lucas's wheelchair suffocated him with regret. Work became his escape. He thought staying distant would cause less harm, but it only made things worse. Valentina listened in silence, then gently held his hand. He didn't pull away. She whispered, "Your son doesn't need a perfect millionaire. He just needs you, now here with all your flaws. He just wants your love without fear." Arturo squeezed her hand and let himself cry, really cry, for the first time in years. From then on, he changed, not overnight, but slowly and sincerely. He made time for Lucas, not just for appointments, but for life. He became the father Lucas had longed for, and Valentina remained by their side, not as a nurse, but a friend. Their conversations grew deeper. Sometimes they didn't even need to speak. One day, after Lucas managed to slightly move his legs, Arturo finally asked Valentina out to dinner. She had been waiting for that moment and said yes with a smile. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was something better, real. Valentina didn't try to fix him. She just stayed. And Lucas, he was the happiest of all. Watching his dad laugh, play, and try to make pancakes was something he never thought he'd see again. Eventually, hospital visits grew less frequent. Lucas improved. But Arturo and Valentina kept seeing each other, not out of need, but choice. One day, in the park, Arturo looked at them both and whispered to Lucas, "Thank you for teaching me to dance and for bringing me back to life." From then on, they weren't just a father, a son, and a nurse. They were a family, proof that love doesn't always arrive as expected, but always when you need it most. Arturo learned that true success isn't in what you own, but in who you love. Valentina proved compassion breaks the strongest walls, and Lucas showed us that even in the hardest moments, there's always room to dream, laugh, and dance again.